I'm not big on legends and that kind of thing. I would like to be remembered as a good actor.
Gene Hackman was more than just a legendary actor. He was a man who shaped Hollywood with his unforgettable performances, but his final days remain shrouded in mystery. A cloud of suspicion surrounds the deaths of Oscar-winning actor Gene Hackman and his wife, whose bodies were found in their Santa Fe home. What really happened inside his Santa Fe home? At first nothing seemed unusual. An autopsy was performed. Initial findings noted no external trauma to either individual, yet as investigators dug deeper, unsettling details began to surface. There were 2 green in color cell phones, 2 bottles of medication, 1 bottle of over-the-counter TI. Strange clues, unanswered questions, and conflicting evidence turned a simple case into something far more complex. Join us as we uncover the new evidence found in Gene Hackman's estate that will leave you speechless. A shocking discovery. A few days ago, the internet was flooded with headlines that seemed too shocking to believe. Gene Hackman, the legendary actor known for his unforgettable performances, had been found dead in his Santa Fe home. But the tragedy didn't end there. Alongside him, his wife Betsy Orokawa and their beloved dog were also discovered lifeless. That the Oscar-winning American actor Gene Hackman, along with his wife Betsy, have been found dead. The unsettling discovery was made on a quiet afternoon when a maintenance worker arrived for a routine check at the couple's estate. After receiving no response at the door, concern began to grow. It wasn't unusual for Hackman and Orokawa to keep to themselves, but something felt off. The worker reached out to neighborhood security, who soon arrived to check inside. Peering through a window, they saw something that made their blood run cold. Both Hackman and his wife lying motionless inside the house. Without hesitation, security called 911, and within minutes deputies from the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office were on the scene. As they entered the house, a heavy silence filled the air. There were no signs of forced entry, no shattered glass, no broken locks, nothing to indicate an intruder. Yet something was undeniably wrong. The first discovery was Betsy's body. She was found near a bathroom countertop, showing signs that she had been there for some time. A few feet away, a small dog was discovered in a closet, lifeless on the surface. Nothing appeared unusual. And then there was Gene, the 95-year-old actor, a man who had once commanded the screen with his presence, was found nearby, also showing signs of decay. A pair of sunglasses lay next to him as if they had slipped from his hand at the moment he collapsed. Authorities quickly moved to assess the situation. Strangely, nothing in the house seemed disturbed. The furniture remained in place. Valuables were untouched. There was no sign of a struggle, no broken objects, no distressing scene, just an eerie stillness that only deepened the mystery. Perhaps even more unsettling was the condition of the couple's pets. While one dog was found deceased, 2 others remained alive, one standing near Betsy. The other roamed the property freely. If something had happened inside that house, why were these dogs unharmed? To rule out environmental causes, Santa Fe Fire Department officials and the New Mexico Gas Company were brought in to check for potential gas leaks or carbon monoxide poisoning. Their findings: nothing. The air was clean, the pipes were intact, and there was no evidence of toxic exposure. At first, deputies leaned toward a natural explanation. Hackman was 95 and Arak at 65 was not without the vulnerabilities of age. Perhaps this was simply a tragic case of illness or even a heartbreaking accident. But as the hours passed and more details surfaced, the scene inside the house seemed Increasingly strange, why had no one heard from them in weeks? Why had both Gene and Betsy been found in separate parts of the house? Why had one dog died while the others survived? Initially no. Danville, Illinois, where young Gene grew up in a household shaped by struggle. His father worked at a local newspaper, operating the printing press, while his mother tried to keep things together at home. But life took a harsh turn when Gene was just 13. His parents divorced, and his father left the family for good. Imagine being a teenager watching the man who was supposed to be your role model walk away, never to return. It's the kind of experience that can either break a person or push them to prove their worth. For Gene, it was the latter. From an early age, he dreamed of becoming an actor. At just 10 years old, he watched his first movie and was completely captivated by the action stars of the time, especially James Cagney. But who would have believed that a kid from a broken home, constantly moving from place to place, could ever make it in Hollywood? By the time he was 16, Gene had enough of school and the restrictions of small-town life. Without telling anyone, he lied about his age and enlisted in the United States Marine Corps. Can you imagine a teenage boy, barely old enough to drive, making the decision to serve in one of the toughest branches of the military? The Marines took him far from home, first to China, where he was stationed in Qingdao, and later Shanghai. But as history unfolded and China fell to communist forces in 1949, G was quickly reassigned, spending time in both Hawaii and Japan. His role as a field radio operator put him in the heart of military operations, giving him discipline, structure, and a sense of purpose. However, even as he served his country, that childhood dream of acting never faded. After 4.5 years in 1951, he was honorably discharged. What came next was a series of odd jobs and an uncertain future. He moved to New York City, working whatever gigs he could find, anything to stay afloat. Yet tragedy struck again in 1962. His mother died in a fire she accidentally started while smoking. It was another devastating blow, but Gene refused to let life defeat him. Determined to chase his passion, Gene studied journalism and television production at the University of Illinois under the GI Bill, but the pull of Hollywood was too strong, and he soon left school, moving to California to pursue acting full-time. In 1956, he joined the Pasadena Playhouse, a well-known training ground for aspiring actors. It was here that he met a young Dustin Hoffman. The two quickly became friends, bonding over their shared outsider status. Ironically, their class weren't impressed by them. Both Gene and Hoffman were voted least likely to succeed. One instructor even gave Gene the lowest score in the history of the Playhouse. Can you imagine how discouraging that must have been, to be told to your face that you'd never make it? But instead of breaking him, the rejection only fueled his determination. Moving to New York City, Gene lived in cramped apartments with Hoffman and another struggling actor, Robert Devil. The three of them would eventually become Hollywood icons. But at the time, they were just broke young men chasing a seemingly impossible dream to survive. Gene took whatever jobs he could find. He even worked as a doorman at a Howard Johnson's restaurant. Bit by bit, Gene started landing small roles. He appeared in television series like Route 66, Naked City, and The Defenders. He got his first film credit in Lilith, starring Warren Beatty and Gene Seberg. His big break came in 1967 when he played Buck Barrow, the brother of the infamous outlaw Clyde, in Bonnie and Clyde. The film was a massive hit, and Hollywood had taken notice of his raw talent, and soon the roles that would define his career began to roll in. His first major breakthrough came in The French Connection from 1971, where he played Jimmy Popey Doyle, a rough, relentless New York detective, willing to do whatever it took to catch criminals. The role won him the Academy Award for Best Actor and solidified his place in Hollywood. Watching Gan in that film, you can see why he became such a respected actor. He didn't just play a character, he became the character. You could feel his intensity, his frustration, his determination. He made it all feel real. But Gene wasn't interested in being just another action star. He had a rare ability to adapt to different genres, effortlessly moving from intense dramas to thrillers, comedies, and even westerns. Over the next few years he worked at an astonishing pace, starring in movies that would go on to become classics. One of his personal favorites was Scarecrow in 1973, where he played alongside a young Al Pacino. The film didn't become a massive box office hit, but critics loved it, and it won the prestigious Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival. It was a quieter, more introspective role for Gene, proving he wasn't just about action and hard-hitting performances. He could also bring depth and vulnerability to a character. Then came The Conversation, directed by Francis Ford Coppola. Here Gene played Harry Call, a surveillance expert who becomes trapped in a web of paranoia and secrecy. The film was subtle but powerful, showing a different side of Gene, quiet, reserved, yet deeply tormented. Watching him in that role, you can't help but feel his unease, his loneliness. It was another masterclass in acting, earning the film an Oscar nomination for Best Picture. And just when it seemed like Gene had done it all, he surprised everyone by stepping into the world of comedy. In 1978, he took on the role of Lex Luthor, the charming but ruthless villain in Superman the movie. It was a complete departure from his usual roles, but he nailed it. His portrayal of Luthor was both menacing and hilarious, a perfect balance of intelligence, arrogance, and dark humor. He would go on to play the role in 2 more Superman sequels, making his version of Luthor one of the most iconic villains in film history. By the 1980s and 1990s, Gan had nothing left to prove, yet he continued to take on challenging and diverse roles. He played a basketball coach in Hoas, a film that has since been ranked as one of the greatest sports movies of all time. He delivered a powerful performance in Mississippi Burning, where he portrayed an FBI agent investigating the murder of civil rights activists in the Deep South, a role that earned him another Oscar nomination. And then in 1992 he gave one of his most unforgettable performances in Unforgiven, directed by Clint Eastwood. This was no ordinary western. It was dark, gritty, and brutally realistic. Gene played Little Bill Daggett, a sadistic sheriff who believed he was bringing justice, but in reality was just another kind of monster. It was a chilling performance, one that won him his second Academy Award this time for Best Supporting Actor. Even in his later years, Gene continued to surprise audiences. By the early 2000s, after nearly 50 years in Hollywood, Gene decided it was time to step away from acting. His final film was Welcome to Mooseport in 2004, a light-hearted comedy that, while not a major hit, served as a fitting farewell to a legendary career. The woman who stood by Gene Hackman, of course, although less known than her legendary husband Betsy Orokowa, was an important part of G. Hackman's life. Born in December 1959 in Hawaii, Betsy Orokowa was a talented musician. From an early age she grew up in Honolulu, where she began studying piano. As a child, by the time she was just 11, she was already performing in youth Concerts in front of thousands at the Honolulu International Center Concert Hall. Imagine that, an elementary school. Students standing on a grand stage. Gene Hackman in the mid-1980s while working part-time at a gym in California. At that time Gene was already a household name. He had won his first Oscar, played the legendary Lex Luthor, and was one of the most sought-after actors in the industry. But despite all his success, there was something about Betsy that captivated him. Maybe it was her calmness, her ability to balance his often intense and demanding world. Whatever it was, the two quickly became inseparable. They moved in together and, by the end of the decade, decided to leave the chaos of Los Angeles behind. Settling in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Santa Fe became their sanctuary, a place where they could enjoy the simple things: art, music, and the breathtaking landscapes of the Southwest. Their home, featured in Architectural Digest in 1990, was a masterpiece in itself, blending Southwestern styles and perched on a 12-acre hilltop with a stunning 360 degrees view of the surrounding mountains. While Hackman continued acting in major films throughout the 90s and early 2000s, Betsy carved out her own space. She became the vice president of Pandora, a well-known home decor and furnishing store in Santa Fe. Had a keen eye for design and beauty, and this work allowed her to express that creativity in a new way. It was clear that they were true partners in life. They attended Santa Fe's cultural events together, supported each other's passions, and enjoyed the kind of quiet, private existence that many in Hollywood could only dream of. For more than 30 years, Gene and Betsy were inseparable. While Hackman stepped away from acting in 2004, the two continued their life in Santa Fe, embracing a peaceful retirement filled with art, music, and close friendships, and in the end they even left this world together. The silent clues left behind. A while ago we said that the first thing the police did was to test for carbon monoxide, and that the results were negative. However, still they couldn't rule it out completely. Investigators knew that carbon monoxide poisoning can be tricky. It doesn't always show up in tests the way you'd expect. Could it be that the initial results were misleading? Could a silent, invisible killer have crept through Gene Hackman and Betsy Orokawa's home without leaving any obvious trace? Carbon monoxide poisoning is one of the first things authorities check for in cases like this. It's odorless, colorless, and can easily go undetected. It seeps into the air, replacing oxygen in the bloodstream and slowly suffocating its victims. But Dr. Philip Keene, a retired chief medical examiner, pointed out something crucial. If the first tests came back negative, it would be highly unlikely for carbon monoxide poisoning to be the cause of death, and yet the police weren't ready to dismiss it completely because toxicology tests take time and false negatives do happen. If there had been only a small leak in the house, the levels of carbon monoxide in the bodies might not have been high enough to be detected immediately as investigators. This is shocking. I can't believe no one checked on them earlier, especially considering what the police found. And when he said that, he was referring to the fact that the police had discovered the front door unlocked while the back door was found ajar. With this new evidence, the police began to move away from the idea that their deaths were purely accidental or natural. Instead, they started to consider the possibility that a third party had been involved. The mystery deepened. The answers were coming, and soon they would change everything. What do you think about the fact that the front door was unlocked while the back door was left ajar? Could this suggest something more than just a tragic accident? Let us know in the comments and subscribe to our channel for more.